Welcome to Prize Fighters, Circus Freaks, and Gangsters. This week, the fight is on.
Woo! Oh, yes, it is.
I'm Greta.
And I'm Jamie.
And we are here to talk about Chinese boxing, and it was an episode to remember.
Thing was amazing. As I just told you, I would say usually I'll spend maybe an hour and a half like watching an episode and taking notes and doing that sort of thing. But this episode, just in the watching of the episode, it took me 2 and a half hours at least. I got pages of notes here. So, I loved every single inch of this episode. It had more humor than the typical episode. The fight choreo...
Oh, sneaky humor,
Oh, tons.
too.
Bill sneaking in quips left and right.
I mean, and just who ended up in charge and how they ended up in charge. And, oh, God, yeah, the fashion, like, kaboom, my head. The culture, the scenery, the fact that they have rounded out this world so fully and there's so many places to go. It's not like at Disney World where, like, you just hit the wall and, like, oh, that's not a real door. So many of the doors are real.
So deep on this. I mean, it's crazy how deep they go on this. And now I feel silly not having gone back and, like, read stuff because back in the day, you know, our knowledge of the martial arts was very different in, say, the 1990s than it is now. So we had no access to Chinese sources. So
Hell yeah.
When I learned about Wing Chun back in the day, it was chapter and verse, like it just popped out in the 9th century as this back alley street fighting style, which makes sense because it's all short movements and stuff like that. But as it turns out, it was devised as a means for beating the crap out of the Qing dynasty. So
Sure.
When Assam is using this style and it's put against Li Yong's, like he's got the Qing haircut, he's using Shaolin martial arts. It's all traditional China. Like, there's so much inference that goes into just the choice of their hometown and fighting style. It's amazing. This is so rich.
Yeah, let's get going on this episode because there are 1,000 places we need to stop and talk about stuff. But first, let's talk about big business for a hot second, where Leary and Mercer are sort of hammering out how many guys are going to be working on not the railroad, but the streetcars.
Yeah, it's fun to see Leary go from being a drunken fighter to being a shrewd businessman. I don't know if that's ever been reflected in real life before because somehow I feel like CTE really lends itself to bookkeeping, but he is on his game in this scene.
You know, that's one of the things. I think Leary's real good at not getting hit in the head so much.
Yeah.
And and also, like, he presents this tough guy thing and can really give a guy a beating when he needs to. But I think he's in it for the string pulling, and he's good at it.
He's exceptionally good at it. He's so smooth. And even down to negotiating, this is where you see, like, the rise of unions and how unions were connected. Like, now you easily see how unions grew out of organized crime. It wasn't because unions are inherently criminal. It's because the same union that protects workers was arranged by organized crime previously, and you see it with Leary. Just in trying to negotiate for how many workers are going to be down on the dock. He's doing it.
Right, yeah, because Mercer wants to get by with the bare minimum. Leary wants to get the maximum because, of course, he gets a kickback on every worker. But Leary is also thinking of his workers.
Wow, you were just so cynical. So cynical there. He's got all these starving dudes who are begging him work, and they're like, sir, I don't want a handout. I really want a job, sir. And then when he goes and listen, I got 10 guys who desperately need a job, and you're like, no, he's just there for the kicks.
It could be both.
Okay. All right.
So I'm saying, like, Mercer wants...
You're really in out double-edged compliments there.
I'm saying he wants to protect his guys. He wants to keep his crew fed. He wants to keep his crew loyal. But he's also clearly going to get a kickback. I mean, each of these guys is going to be paying him effectively tribute back.
Yeah. And I really appreciate this show for lending an insight into that because I don't think I was ever able to really make a connection between... I didn't understand how unions and organized crime might be connected because it never growing up white collar, you don't have any association with unions or with organized crime. So it's like, well, I don't even understand how the hell those two things go together.
Yeah, that was one thing. A couple of things happened in this episode where watching versions of this show in, say, like the 70s or 80s or 90s, you'd have the big business or the powerful person come in and say, and now we've solved it. And everybody would go, yay, it's solved. And this time they're like, well, got a Band-Aid on it for now. How are you going to scheme to overcome it?
Yeah, and that's really what they're running into with Leary and the other guy. I guess all of American history is just us trying to plug holes in the dike with our fingers, and like every time we plug a hole, a new one springs out.
And I think the magical thing was a certain amount of naivete that went into writing the history, and like, see, look, we fixed it, and if you were there on the ground.
Yeah, we did it all.
Yeah.
Started at the bottom and now we're here.
I
guess that makes sense in the 1950s when we went from being like a literal joke in global politics in 1900 to being the dominant power in the world in 50 years. I can see why people were walking around with some puffed up chests, brushing their shoulders off a little bit.
Right.
I mean, we went from nothing to everything in 50 years.
I mean, ignoring the fact that the rest of the world had been more or less flattened, but hey, we were on top, so yeah.
Hey, we flattened them to get to the top.
But we went from these serious negotiations, which again was a lot of fun to watch, to just fire. All the fire everywhere.
Yes. Oh, God. I've read about the working conditions in those factories, and I thought it was really interesting that he brought up, like, no drunks because we don't want anybody's fingers getting caught in the machines. And, like, that was a really good point because they would have to send a small child into that machine in order to retrieve that finger so it stopped gumming up the works. And possibly then losing another child to a machine. So you only have so many children you could feed into these machines.
Well, that and, blood and bone has too many of the wrong minerals and it's going to mess up the purity of your steel. I mean, there are a lot of problems here.
Yeah, just literally gumming up the works with their tiny little bodies.
But I super duper loved how they're using fire at the ironworks, and like this process is getting underway. But then also using fires, like we're honing the fighters, we're purifying the space for the duel.
They're in there hammering steel while people are bashing at Joe Taslim, Li Yong with staffs doing iron shirt training, and then it cuts to Assam training on his wooden man, and then it back to the iron workers, and it's very cool. Everybody's preparing. They're all going to war in their own way.
And that and they show the dueling square. And, okay, this is where, my sort of cartoon, manga, graphic novel level of varied martial arts comes in. Because I'm like, oh, that's like the fighting thing from Avatar and Legend of Korra.
You have the most G-rated references. This was literally like Martin Scorsese reimagining Bloodsport. And you're like, it's like Avatar. It's just like Avatar.
Well, No, but I'm just saying that they took that concept and kind of made it into like this fantastical sport fighting in those cartoons, and it's really fun to sort of see where this kids show where they getting their references from these honest to God, hard bitten, scary, terrifying.
Yeah, and that was another thing because we grew up with sport fighting, and so when people were reading about these death matches back in the day, the consensus was nobody really fucking did that. Like, they went out there and yes, you could die. You had to sign a sheet of paper saying I recognize I could die. But beyond that, they weren't out there killing each other. But apparently, the Wing Chun guys really, really were killing. They were out there. There was one guy. His name was Foshan Yuen Lo Jia, and he was the winner of 1,000 death fights between 1920 and 1950. I don't know how many people he killed, but he was from Foshan, which is where Assam was from.
You're very right, yeah.
I mean, that is where Wing Chun comes from, and those people were ready to fight to the death at all times.
Yeah, and that raised platform, I mean, that was clearly made of quarried stone, and then they put some sort of canvas, straw stuff, something. Anyway, I wouldn't like to get thrown down on that. Ow. No. I mean, even when they were showing the training montage with
with Lee Yong in the last episode, they showed them fighting on that really thin carpet, and I was like, my God, like, because I explained there was a wrestling carpet back in the day, so which was really thick, but those guys were just, I mean, that's just, there's no padding underneath that. They don't even have the cool, like, squishy subfloor padding that we have. It was just like, you were just smashing on the ground. That was it.
I mean, the good news is hopefully that was a raised floor, so those boards bounced a little. I don't know.
Yeah. Let's just hope for that. Let's hope there was some give in them. My God.
Oh, and so we go through the intro.
But so let me just go back to this Avatar reference, because we're looking at a top-down view of a heavily blood-stained canvas mat surrounded by tribal drummers, torches.
It's
underground, and that reminds you of a G-rated film.
Well, so there's the section, especially in Legend of Korra, where there's all of the prize fighting that goes on in the first couple of episodes in that big arena.
I've never even. So is that it's an anime?
Yeah. It's like the sequel to the Avatar cartoons, but even in the Avatar cartoons, there is this whole thing where there's like this raised stone platform and they hold prize fights on it.
Oh, okay. It also had like a Star Trek vibe, especially like when you saw Atoy and Mai Ling later, but like it totally looked like a Vulcan or a Romulan, like, you know, some kind of a traditional duel of some sort, even down to the costuming.
Oh, and those things borrowed heavily from Asian influences.
I'm sure they did.
Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to see Worf and in the crowd, you know, get in the corner for Lee Yong.
Yeah, but I'm really having fun with this one and sort of seeing how this cartoon show that I enjoyed and then my kid enjoyed, it always had this deeper feeling vibe, like there was some really good stuff there, and seeing like, oh, okay, so they're pulling from this reference, they're pulling from that reference. No wonder it feels much better than your average just sort of like lazy cartoon.
God, did it flesh any of the Little Mermaid out for you, or I'm just being an ass. I am being an ass.
There's no pitchfork fighting in this show. I mean, when they break out the pitchforks, then maybe we could talk. Jumping to the intro sequence, there's a woman with a sword in that, and I'd always just assume like, oh, that must be Mai Ling or Atoy. No, that is clearly the new girl.
Oh, Lai's her name. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, well, we saw a little bit of her badass sword work at the end of the last episode, so.
Right, and so that's why I picked up on it this time. I'm like,
gotcha.
Oh, okay,
Nice.
Okay. So you talked about in the past when we start out with the episode that, you know, there was always like advertising for a lot of these fights and a lot of betting went on, and so when Jacob shows up with the flyer for the fight, I was like, aha, that's what you're talking about.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean that was a really big deal for these fights, and so they would. And one of the things that I noticed while I was watching this was that I was just listening to this podcast about this guy Bartley Gorman, who is King of the Gypsies. He's one of the greatest bare knuckle fighters of all time.
Okay,
and he explained the reason why they used a bunch of the strikes that they used in the fight between Lee Yong and Assam in the podcast. I mean, because the concepts translate directly. So it was really interesting to see, no matter where you are in the world, no matter the time, no matter the place, you're going to see the exact same things happening in the fight world. And it's fascinating. From the betting to the having to run from the cops from venue to venue to getting no contests because cops broke up a fight before it was somebody was able to get killed.
Yeah. And talking about the police, it is really fun that we've got Lee and O'Hara walking through Chinatown and they're literally doing the, hey, it's quiet. Maybe it's too quiet.
And so literally at the same time that this is happening, almost to the year, Bill the Butcher and John Morrissey are on the opposite coast having 3 companies of infantry chasing them from place to place as they're trying to have a fight. The fight that ends in John Morrissey really getting killed, and then he goes back and kills Bill the Butcher. But so it's such a different thing because you got cops and the military chasing these fighters all over the place so they can't fight on the East Coast, and on the West Coast, the cops are in the crowd.
Well, and you have to remember just the mayhem that was being caused by these fights, and that's what they didn't, whereas, in San Francisco...
Yeah, because it was really because of the riots that would happen outside of the fights, not the deaths that would happen inside the fights.
They know what they're getting in for. But I really did sort of love the kind of horror movie vibe that they gave to them sort of walking down the street, and they have like the keys rattling, and that was a lot of fun.
Oh, they had so many amazing tropes in this one too, like even down to like a woman screams, someone fires a shot in the air, and the crowd explodes into mayhem. Yeah, I mean, it's so great. This such an amazing episode.
Oh, these guys took film studies and decided to have the most fun with it. I always love that. Also, when Bill and Richard are sort of walking towards like, what the hell is going on, man? And they run into the night market. Like, that was really cool looking too. They did a great recreation of just sort of what you would have in a regular night market with the carts and the food, and yeah.
Yeah, and Lee bought something to eat like within 10 seconds, and then he was like, oh, it's a night market. I guess it's a street fair. We better start eating.
Yeah. Well, remember, he has nobody at home to cook for him, so he's probably hungry.
Well, and as I've learned from this amazing podcast called The History of American Food, Americans commonly ate street food in the 19th century because they couldn't cook in their own homes.
A lot of them couldn't. And of course, O'Hara, he's determined to suffer. What the hell you eating? I mean, he is just going to be cranky about this.
He even turns down a beer. The alcoholic, degenerate gambler turns down a beer. And meanwhile, he's the only cop who isn't drinking through the whole episode in this one.
Well, I think he's sort of feeling somebody has too much to drink, and they do the I'm never going to drink again. I feel like he's kind of on that vibe right now.
I think he's in Chinatown underground. He's probably afraid the Hopway are going to stab him up too.
That too. I did catch a thing there where O'Hara's like, you're here, God hates me because he's making me suffer.
Oh, yeah, I think I know why you're here, Lee. It's because God's punishing me.
Yeah.
And then Lee goes, I don't think so. And he goes, why not? And he goes, because he's not there.
Yeah. I think even Lee, for as much as he thinks the Chinese are people, he's saying, yeah, but they're still godless heathens.
Well, I also think he's saying, your God has no hold over me.
Yeah.
He's a godless Southerner. Do you think that's because he's so jaded over the loss of his beloved and the racism and the Civil War and everything that now he's just so jaded that he's lost his faith?
I hadn't thought about that at all.
Because you don't run across a lot of atheists in 19th century fiction, honestly.
No, you don't.
I mean, even this was when spiritualism was just starting to get going.
Yes.
So even if they weren't Christians, like they were reading The Power of Vril or some stupid bullshit.
Oh, they were writing The Power of Vril.
Yes, there you go. They thought space aliens were making Aryans into superhumans.
Oh, Helena Blavatsky was flitting around. Like, she was in New York right now.
Oh, was she?
Yeah.
And to anybody who doesn't know who Helena Blavatsky is, she was a 400-pound woman who claimed to have climbed up the Himalayan mountains to learn secret Tibetan Buddhist knowledge.
Well, when she was a kid, she was this Russian noble, and her grandfather was actually sort of an envoy for one of these Buddhist tribes that like ran around the grasslands of Russia and messed around in Tibet and stuff. So she actually had like this crazy adventurous childhood where she like ran around with Buddhist horsemen.
Oh, okay.
Well, when she was a little kid, yeah.
I don't know how much running she did, but...
Well, sure. When
I don't know. She was a large lady. She was a large lady. You don't start out a skinny kid and end up that big. I feel like.
I mean, she had a military father. She ran around as a kid. But once you become a pound-a-day tobacco-smoking bigamist, yes, you might hit 400 pounds. But as a little kid, she was an active horse-riding hellion.
That's another one of it's people who take a ton of stimulants and end up crazy fat. I will never understand it. John Candy, Jim Belushi, all those guys. It's like, how the hell were they just mainlining mayonnaise anytime that they weren't ripping rails? It doesn't make any sense. How? How did it happen? The metabolism doesn't make sense.
Body chemistry is a crazy thing. And I think if you do that many drugs, I bet your metabolism just goes on strike at some point.
That makes sense.
But yeah, so we go down into the secret underground space, yet another secret underground space of the 19th century.
Yes, I immediately thought of you, all of the portents that went with them descending into this underground layer.
Exactly, and they went full gorgeous comic book graphic novel lighting. I was just like, yes!
It seriously looked like Martin Scorsese was reimagining the movie Bloodsport. It was because all the woodwork was it was just like Gangs of New York, where it was just like these painstakingly recreated beautiful set pieces. And everything was so like dark and gloomy and scary and bright at the same time. It was amazing.
The way they were lighting people's faces. I mean, the way they lit Young Jun and then Assam and then the women as they were walking in my God, the most gorgeous outfits. My Ling shows up and she's like, I am the Empress. She is fully decked.
Oh, yeah. Myling and Atoy looked I mean, Atoy's outfit was crazy. The copper streak across her eyes. Oh, she had those gold feathers on her shoulders. She looked like Chinese Wonder Woman. Like, she was so badass looking.
Yeah, she sort of had like a fantasy outfit on, which totally worked. Like, that's her job. She sells fantasy. Whereas my Ling was like straight up the middle. I am going to embody the sort of the Qing sensibility of royalty.
Yeah, she was almost like a Romulan commander, just like sitting up drumming her fingers on the armrest of her command chair. Everybody looked so good, but the outfit for Atoy was just like, what? This should be sold to people so they can wear it. It was so badass.
And just like her hair, just everything. They were having so much fun with that. And I'm glad that they're really giving Atoy kind of this fantasy look, because the more she goes on, the more complicated a character. And she's becoming my favorite character. And by the end of this episode.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because now she's the only one with any kind of noble cause. She's the woman, a ruthless madam who purchases humans, and she is the most noble of all of the people in this.
Yeah, screw the hooker with a heart of gold. She's just pragmatic as hell.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so we get to see Wang Chao working as the cruise director, and Lao Ting, he's the head of the Chinese Benevolent Society. He is sort of the ringmaster and also almost the presiding priest. And so you see the ceremonial, the religious elements of it. They've got the big drums going. You got the fire going. You've got the Buddhist priests out there.
Yep.
The whole thing.
Yep. Blessing everyone involved.
And you had talked
And Bill throws down money on Assam.
Okay, I was going to get to that. You had been talking about in the past how, like, in the Egyptian temples, it wasn't so much a religious ceremony as it was an entertainment, and you were trying to get people in.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, this had religious elements to it, but it was also clearly an entertainment. People were betting, people were getting beer, but I was like, there's a lot of, like, the 19th century tent revival feeling to this as well. It's a spectacle.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But just an FYI, I guess, so having the monks involved in this fight was important for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, the history of martial arts in China, especially the Shaolin martial arts, comes from India, and it's this guy, Bodhidharma, who was known as the blue-eyed barbarian. So I assume he was like Tokharian. He was supposed to be from somewhere in Central Asia or Persia or India, but if he had blue eyes, he was either Persian or from this area near Bactria, which like there were blue-eyed people there. Anyway, so he was this irascible dude who came and brought martial arts from India to China, and he taught everybody how to be a badass. And so, like, monks started fighting then. That was, like, the thing. And they just stayed involved in it. And even, like, today, the best of all the Thai kickboxers, they're all monks.
Huh. Okay. Well, if you just sort of are dedicated to it, live a life among people who are also dedicated to it, that's going to help. But yeah, so they're building the tension, and then O'Hara's like, "Hey, I'd like to put a $5 down," and I just busted up laughing.
on the tall guy, guy, he
not
says.
Drinking, but you know what? I haven't gambled in a long time. That's always gone well for me.
I hadn't even thought of that. I was so shocked that he turned down the drink. I was like, all right, well, he bet on Assam, so
So for me, it was like this very tense moment, and somehow O'Hara manages to inject this moment of humor, but without being funny at all. I just started laughing.
So the fight is amazing. So Lee Yong's in there. He's fighting. He's fighting every bit. Like, he looks like he might as well have those huge white eyebrows and the long beard that he's constantly playing with, because he's fighting exactly like a Shaolin monk out of any of those 70s movies. Doing tons of joint locks. He's constantly reversing position. And then on the other hand, you have Assam going crazy, just looking like he's right out of an Ip Man movie, doing every one of the like crazy Chinese uppercuts and all. Mm-hmm. And it is so dynamic, and I love that their fighting styles clash so much, but they mesh well as well.
Yes.
It's so nice.
And
go ahead.
I was going to say, I sort of felt like Assam was fighting this like as a true duel. It was like, I just need him to tap out. Like, I sort of felt like that's the attitude he was going in with, because there was a fair bit of open hand that he was using.
I didn't realize, did you realize before this that everyone knows that Mai Ling and Assam are brother-sister now? Everyone knows. Li Yong knows. The Toy knows. Everybody knows.
I knew knew.
Because right before the fight, Li Yong goes, "Are you sure you want me to do this? Because I'm going to kill your brother." And she's like, if he dies, he dies.
Yeah, I think they just decided there's enough going on that we'll just let this go, because it's Mai Ling's secret to tell, and it's also Toy's secret to tell. So I guess they're just like, the tea got spilled all over the place.
But I feel like everybody knows it at this point. They're just like, hell, whatever. It's their brother, sister, whatever.
And I think, there's plenty going on. We don't need to have this sort of like false secret out there.
Yeah. So as these two are in there, it's before they've really started trying to kill each other, but they're still doing a lot of flashy moves. And Bill has another great line. He says, "I don't know what the hell kind of boxing this is, but if they could all fight like this, we'd be in some deep shit."
I'm thinking, yeah, you are.
Yeah. And and then Penny shows up. And she has that amazing Chinese-looking cloak. So it's not Chinese, but it looks like it might be silk, and it's got gold embroidery on it. I loved it.
I always love how sort of the person who's not supposed to be there puts on this big giant hood as if that's going to hide their identity. All it's going to do is make everybody look at the person in the big giant hood.
At the big giant shiny hood that looks almost right, but not quite. And then they notice her pale ass face and her gleaming blonde locks.
I literally wrote down, "Oh, Jesus, Penny."
Yeah, she walks in there looking like Little Blue Riding Hood.
Yeah, I mean, gorgeous silk. She is wearing some gorgeous silk, which would have totally made sense for a really rich person in San Francisco to have, because, again, as all those Chinese people were being brought over as laborers, the ship captains are going to be dealing in silk and porcelain and tea.
Well, and she has her Chinese busboy or whatever he is, valet.
Right, yeah.
Who can go and fetch her or whatever.
Yeah, so that 100% makes sense. There's no reason to have a problem with that. But yes, everybody who was a powerful person in that scene was shiny. Oh,
and they all looked fantastic. I will say that Bill and Lee, they fit in, they blended in more easily in the scenes where they were just kind of walking down the street. They blended in more than Penny did in her dumbass quote-unquote disguise.
Well, yeah, and you sort of look like even Wong Chao had on the top hat. So since they were wearing kind of middle of the road dark woolens, like, they're just going to kind of fit in with the crowd there. If
they didn't have the star on their chest, nobody would have had any idea they were cops. Meanwhile, she goes in there, basically, she might as well have had people blowing trumpets to announce her arrival. She needed heralds. Dun, da, 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 da.
Yeah. But, watching the fight, watching their two different fight styles, again, these guys' personalities come out with their fighting styles. They kept it up. It was so good. And because there were a couple of times, like when Assam had him in the armbar.
The worst armbar that a human being has ever attempted, ever. And I will say, not just on celluloid, that is the dumbest, lamest, weirdest looking armbar I have ever seen half-assedly attempted ever.
Because I was just like, is he trying to just get him to tap out? Because first of all, nobody's going to tap out with that armbar. But...
No. And the tide totally turned on that armbar, too.
Oh, yeah. But I was, because I was like, like he knows it's a duel, and so he's like, "Oh, hey, I just want you to acknowledge that I'm better, and we'll call it a day." And Leong's like, "No, I will kill you if I have to because we need to win."
Yeah, because my boss is a fucking psychopath and also my girlfriend, so I guess I'm going to do what she says so she doesn't cut my head off while I'm sleeping.
Well, I think Leong is just a lot angrier than Assam, too.
Do you? I think that he's just really, he's in that, like, samurai bound to his daimyo kind of thing and she's also his girlfriend, and then she's also fucking terrifying. So that's not a woman you can sleep next to, Jesus Christ.
No!
You just be staring at the ceiling the entire time like, oh, this bitch is going to kill me. I forgot to mention her fingernails and shit. What else did I forget? I forgot to get the milk. Fuck! I'm definitely dead. Like, there's any reason this woman could kill you. You could just not dry the dishes the way she liked them, and that's it for you. That's the end.
Well, I think Leong has a little slack because he's done her a couple of solids, but yeah, he could run out of runway here real quick, and we'll see some of that in a minute. So Assam gets Leong down. And
yeah, he does a little ground and pound, and then tries to drop the world's dumbest armbar on him, and then Leong pops up and hits him with a dim mock punch to the solar plexus.
I was like, is that?
And the crowd goes fucking crazy.
I was like, is that the heart punch? Because that's even I could spy that.
No, the solar plexus one is one that basically what the fighter, that guy Bartley Gorman said was that it just completely takes the other fighter's legs out from under him. Like you can't draw a breath, and so you can't. Yeah, it's hard to stay on your feet.
Yeah, and so I was wondering if it can also like mess up your heartbeat a little bit, or does it just really like screw up your breathing? Or
or actually no, it's Leong that gets hit with he gets hit with the dim mock punch. Because he gets hit in the solar plexus, and that's when he starts covering up. He covers up with one hand, and he's only holding his left hand. He's holding his right hand over his solar plexus, covering his ribs, and then he's fighting left-handed. So he's damn near dead when he gets beaten down, and then he's laying on the ground, and as soon as Assam goes to grab his sash, that's when he snaps to life like Tyson Fury in that first Deontay Wilder fight, and just sits up like he's coming back from the dead and fights back. That was crazy.
Yeah. Assam gave him the solar plexus punch where, he lost his breath. But when Leong comes back up,
Leong hits him with a double punch to the liver and the kidney. And that wrecked, But
doesn't he also just get him right in the sternum, too, to mess up his breathing and his heartbeat?
He might. Maybe I missed that one. I was taking so many notes. Because I got notes on stuff that doesn't even matter. I could tell you a lot of stuff about iron body training that you don't need to know.
It looks really painful and requires dedication. That's what I got out of it.
Yes. Weirdly, though, the person who invented the sand technique that Leong uses to destroy Assam is a Wing Chun guy. He's one of the people out of Foshan. So ostensibly, Assam used that technique as well when we get back into our flashback.
Sure, but just like hardening your hands. I mean, that just makes sense.
Yeah, and that fighter Bartley Gorman said that double punch to the stomach turns a fighter's lips blue, and basically they just can't go on. Like a liver punch will do that, but I've never been punched in the spleen and the liver at the same time. That couldn't be fun. That just, to anybody who's never been punched or kicked in the liver, your liver just dumps your liver is a sponge that holds toxins, that keeps them out of your body. And when you get kicked or punched in the liver, it dumps all those toxins into your body all at once. And it can kill you. You can go into cardiac arrest from it. But
it sounds like you'd have some sort of like septic shock kind of reaction or something.
Yeah, and you can tear your liver doing it. Ooh. I mean, it's not good. It's not a fun time.
And so, there's definitely that moment.
It's he gets melted with a punch to the nose. That super close up. Oh my God, that was nasty. His nose just completely flattens to his face. All his blood spurts out of his face. It's all in super slow-mo. Oh, that was a great shot.
Yeah, I mean, that was the other really fun thing is it's those actors fighting.
Yep.
It wasn't like they're stunt dudes. I already knew these guys could fight, but watching them go that hard, like how much they must have practiced to sell that fight the way they did. Damn.
They make a lot of contact. So Leong, Joe Taslim, he was on the Indonesian judo team from 1997 to 2009. He won tons of medals. And he was Sub-Zero in Mortal Kombat. He was in The Raid, which I don't know if you've seen it, but he's Indonesian. And the Indonesian martial arts movies, it's full contact. Everybody goes to the fucking hospital afterwards.
Wow.
It's crazy. So they have zero regard for their own health. So those guys are beating the shit out of each other. And what's fun is, Assam is Snake Eyes, and Lee Young is Storm Shadow. He's Storm Shadow. Yes, he's also Sub-Zero. So
Leong's Sub-Zero and Andrew Koji is Storm Shadow, right?
Yeah. And then Andrew Koji, Assam, he is a Taekwondo and Shaolin Kung Fu dude. And he was actually he dropped out of school a couple of times, just focus more on his martial arts. So these guys are both really, really legit martial artists.
Yeah.
And the woman who plays Mai Ling is not a martial artist, but she was a backup dancer for Michael Bublé.
What? She's not a martial artist?
Yep.
Okay, so she's
a dancer.
She was selling some of the martial arts that she was doing better than you normally see gymnasts sell it. So nice.
Well, that's also that calls back to the original. I don't remember her name, but the first female who was really popular in Chinese kung fu movies was a woman who was a dancer and had no background in martial arts, and she's the one who really popularized martial arts because how Jackie Chan started choreographing everything as a dance, he got from her.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it's cool that again, these people are such students of martial arts and film. It's amazing.
But yeah, that was a great fight, and at the very end, it was interesting to see how they worked up to okay, so is Lee Young gonna be this guy's a great fighter, I don't want to take him out, because I could see him I think I have to take him out for Mai Ling.
But he just had to take the sash because,
right.
Assam was just going to take a sash. He wasn't going to stomp his head in in Drive, but he could have. Lee Young was out.
Yes. So, yeah, and so that moment of where he was thinking about snapping his neck, I was just that. See, that to me is why I thought Lee Young is angrier than Assam.
Ah. Yeah, no, I think he's just one of those guys who will do whatever his boss tells him to do.
Right, because there is a certain weird safety in that where you're not making decisions, where you can depend on somebody else to make all the decisions for you.
Yeah, and he wasn't making the decision. He was looking at Mai Ling, the evil dragon lady, who was go ahead and kill my brother. I don't give a shit about him. And that's when we have that perfect theatrical. It was right out of Clue. The lights should have gone out. Because the lights go out. A lady screams. A gunshot goes into the air. Yeah, but it's Penny screams, and then
O'Hara
Bill saves the day.
And then the crowd scatters, and it was just great. And O'Hara picks up Penny, and they walk out. And so I was so is O'Hara forming a new alliance?
Wow, this is all Survivor to you, huh? You are all right. Okay, all right. Yeah. So you can speak for Mai Ling then, as I guess. I didn't realize you were a dragon lady until right now, so I guess I should be more terrified of you.
I'm terrible at keeping secrets. I always want to tell everybody everything I know. So you're good. You're safe.
You're tall enough you can hit me from another area code. So you can just hold me away from you with one hand and then punch me with the other, and I'll just be swinging my little T-Rex arms at you. I'm over half a foot shorter than you, I think.
But it was more I think O'Hara needed a friend, and he also needed somebody who he could talk to who, it won't get back to anybody who he talks to normally.
I think they both do. I think this is kind of one of those, the two outcasts sitting on the dock of the bay, just well, I guess we're friends now because everybody hates us.
Right. Yeah. So not that he's going to scheme with her. It's just he's lost a whole bunch of connections, and he's reaching out, searching for another one. So
yeah, they're just united in their ostracization. And she has that horrible, sad line where he's they don't care much, or the fact that you're the wife of the mayor doesn't mean much down here. And she's doesn't mean much anywhere. Yeah. And it's oh, this poor woman is just so beleaguered.
Yeah, I'm starting to see that triple strand pearl necklace as sort of this sign of her captivity.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because she had it in the very first scene, and you keep seeing her in it. She is one of her going out things. And so I'm I bet that was a wedding present. And so this is the way Blake's yeah, I bought you.
Interesting. You know, I noticed yesterday, completely off topic, LeBron James wore a pearl choker in a press conference, and it looked damn good on him. So I'm going to have to judge it against pennies, and then I'll let you know which one looks better. It has this big emerald in the middle of it.
I was going to say, for a while, dudes wore all the jewels, and then they became too manly, and all they'd wear is chains, and then they started wearing diamonds again, and it's like, why aren't we wearing pearls? They're very expensive.
Yeah, they certainly are.
So I guess LeBron is going, hey.
Yeah, there it is.
Hey.
I guess it's time to break out Grandma's pearls.
Yeah, but you look at all imperial dress before about the 19th century, and men are like dripping in pearls because they're a huge wealth flex.
I didn't realize that. Interesting. I know the Vikings would have worn the hell out of them because they wore any kind of jewelry, but...
Oh, hell yeah. I mean, altar cloths made great capes. But so we get back, like, it's after the fight. Everybody's gotten home somehow, and Father June, is he angry? Or is he incandescent with rage?
I think that, honestly, the way that he unceremoniously just says, nah, he lost, he's dead to us, I think that he almost predicted that outcome from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was basically like, I'm going to treat you like a son. And then, nope. Well, apparently if my son had gone out there and fought, then I guess I'd have to kick him out of this gang, but I get to kick you out instead.
But yeah, poor young June.
And it's not like he chose it. He didn't volunteer. They attacked him to see if he was worthy of doing it and then made him do it. And he even said he didn't have a choice at the beginning.
Yeah, young June's like, you didn't have to do this, man.
It's just ridiculous that they kick him out of the gang for this.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have that Rocky moment. They had the Rocky moment for both people in the locker room. They had for Leong and for Assam.
Oh, yeah. And Assam's like, I didn't. But yeah, so Father June's like, yep, we're done with him. And young June looks like he just got told he had to take his puppy back to the pound.
That's a really brutal way to put it, but, yeah, it's his best friend and his brother, he's called his brother, and, like, he desperately wants this guy to remain friends with him, and, like, knows that he's a valuable commodity, and his dad's just a dickhead.
Yeah, no, I mean, he looked so heartbroken, and this comes up again, but somebody picked up Assam and brought him to a dark room to help him recover. And it turns out to be Atoy.
Atoy. And yes, Atoy. Sorry, I had a note that there was a fun crossover to Vikings because it's either My Ling or... Yeah, My Ling is Ragnar's opium dealer in Vikings.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, so when he was going through his opium haze and he was imagining Mai Ling there, I was like, holy shit, Ragnar was doing it's almost like the same scene. It's funny as hell.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
So Atoy has scooped up Assam, and so even though she wouldn't take on some bad luck, she seems willing to take on Assam's bad luck because she sees something else in him that I don't think even he sees in himself.
Well, to me, before we got to the end, and I'm not going to cut to that yet, but I'd like...
Yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah, before we saw that, it made perfect sense to me, and I even wrote down a note that, like, she needs security for her club because people went in there and started smashing shit up the one time, and he's the perfect one to do that. Plus, she has her own, like, secret underground tong nobody knows about, this shadow tong, and so she can recruit him for that, and nobody has any idea.
Yeah, so she's being a shadowy figure, but we get a nice sort of scene with the acknowledged shadowy figure, Buckley, as he strides in to Mercer's steel factory. And Mercer's like, God damn it.
This Weasley little shit slug. God, he's such an amazing person to hate. He's like the greatest heel in the world. This is a man that if he was in pro wrestling, I would be one of those people who's like, couldn't remember that it wasn't real and be like trying to stab him in the parking lot like they used to do in the 70s. Like, what a shithead this guy is.
I was sitting there debating with myself. I'm like, is he chaotic evil or is he lawful evil? Because he's creating chaos, but he's doing it within the rules. And it's, like as writing, it's fantastic. But yeah, you just want to take him down. He is so hateable. It's awesome.
Oh, just people who live in the realm of loopholes are the shittiest people on planet Earth. And you just want to strangle them until they pop like a fucking tube of toothpaste or something.
Yeah, so that's why I settled on lawful evil.
Oh, and so he's undercutting Byron Mercer and because we have not seen him in any negotiations with anybody, that he's bullshitting Byron Mercer as he's saying it, that he's got this unnamed third party that's come in and undercut him by 15% or whatever. And of course, he's going to use Chinese labor to do it.
And it's a total callback from when he was like peeking around the post when Mercer was getting like carried around on the shoulders of the Irish workers for giving them all jobs.
Yeah, doing his goofy ass Bugs Bunny, Pink Panther, peeking around a pole type shit.
Yeah. Okay, just a quick side note. Again, this is how damn good this show is. They are using charcoal to run this steel plant, which would have been the way of the world. Coal was barely getting going, and there was actually a huge fight between the people who wanted to do coal steel and the people who wanted to stick to charcoal steel.
What is the difference?
Well, charcoal, you burn down wood into charcoal, whereas like you mine the coal out of the ground, and coal has some sulfur content, but it also burns hotter, and so that's why we ended up settling on coal.
Okay.
Because the carbon is more compacted. But at the time, there was
also we would be living in a massive desert right now if we hadn't switched to coal rather than charcoal.
Well, and like that's what happened to Lebanon. That's why Lebanon lost all its trees, because they cut them all down.
And Turkey has no trees because they cut down all their trees.
And China, before they went on that huge tree planting rampage.
Really all of the early civilizations, like the Bronze Age civilizations, completely fucked themselves with deforestation. The Mayans did it.
Yep.
The Incans did. Everybody did it. They'd have mudslides and all.
Yeah.
It was a mess.
Yeah, you name it, they did. but I still thought it was very fun that they went to the trouble to make it clear, at least to idiots like me who are watching. I'm like, they're using charcoal. And so
how in the hell did they do that for a quote unquote idiot / science teacher, an idiotic science teacher who could pick out from the background what was it that told you they were using coal rather than charcoal?
Or charcoal rather than coal. There was
there
was a shot, and they did it twice, where there's a guy scooping with a shovel and putting the charcoal in a wheelbarrow. There's one in the cold open.
Does coal look different than charcoal? I don't even know what the two... I guess coal's a rock and charcoal looks like.
Right, and so coal is a lot denser, and it's heavier, and it's a little bit shiny.
Okay.
Whereas this is chunks of charcoal with the charcoal, like dust kind of around it, and it's a lot more dull.
Okay, interesting.
And the way it sort of goes into the wheelbarrow, like I said, this is kind of green beans versus long beans kind of pickiness, but
it's still interesting. Who knew that there was some kind of industrial? I guess this is like the 19th century version of VHS versus Betamax,
100%,
or mini disc versus CD. They're going charcoal versus coal.
Yeah, and later on we'll get into the fight between AC power versus DC power and how that all comes out in the Edison versus Westinghouse.
It was Edison versus Tesla. Let's have it right.
Well, but once Tesla was out of the picture,
yeah.
Edison versus Westinghouse, when they went to how we're going to do power systems for like citywide grids, then it was Edison versus Westinghouse.
But wasn't Tesla an engineer for Westinghouse at the time? Yeah, I'm pretty sure he worked for Westinghouse at the time.
Yeah. And that's actually, I think that the Edison Westinghouse is a 20th century fight, not a 19th century fight. So yeah. Scroll it back. Okay, so we get to see how you induced a medical coma in the 19th century.
Have them smoke so much opium they can't stay awake.
Well, and I think if they're too fucked up to smoke their own opium, you just blow opium smoke at them.
There you go. You got to make an addict however you can, You can't always just give out free crack rocks. Sometimes you got to take the extra step, go the extra mile, blow the smoke into their face for them.
Yeah. Well, Awesome's pretty screwed up here.
Oh, yeah. He could probably use a Percocet or two. So
yeah.
His shoulder's dislocated. His face is mangled. He's just beaten all to pieces. And then we get his opium flashback.
They were doing a really good job of it because they were mixing reality and the past, and was my Ling there? Like, I was like, what? My Ling came to see him? No, wait, that can't be right.
Oh, yeah, because he imagined her there, and it was really a toy, or Lai was taking care of him, and then he saw, yeah. But then we find out who his teacher was, and we get to see a flashback to when he started learning Kung Fu, and we meet Sifu Lee Chang, and he offers to teach Assam in his flashback, and I guess it was useful just to give a bit of background, but it wasn't, I don't think it was especially necessary otherwise.
Oh, I did appreciate that they had the I want to learn karate trope, and the first thing that happens is the Sifu's like, but first, you must learn how to breathe. Like, that's
always.
That's every time.
It's always that way, because it's always the person with too much chi, and so he's got too much hot chi, and he needs to balance it out, and yeah, so... Jesus, I really could have used one of these people back in the day.
But I also appreciated that there was sort of that element of like, you're too much trouble, boy. We're sending you to military school.
Basically. Pretty much. And for anybody who cares, the actual master in that town at that time, his name was Fak Bo Chun, and he was the Iron Palm guy. He was the guy who popularized that because he was such a badass. So he would just go around and beat the brakes out of everybody. And then that guy taught the guy who won the 1,000 death matches.
Yeah. And so we get sort of the classic Kung Fu, Tai Chi 101. And I was like, thank you to the actors for making this kid a little bit graceless and clumsy at the start before he starts whipping out excellent moves. But he looks...
Well, that's kind of how it always is in the for Kung Fu movies. They're always this brash, impetuous, fist-throwing kid who gets beat up as much as he beats other people up, but he'll fight a group of people for no reason. And then he gets the master who teaches him to harness his chi so that he can calm himself and find his inner peace, and then unleash that peace on other people in the form of violence.
Yeah, and in my campaign to point out that, yes, Assam Xiaoxing's family was low status, you can see from the stuff that they're wearing before he gets his cool monk outfit that, yeah, they're peasants. They're wearing kind of this rough, kind of homespun type clothing. They have a nice-ish house, but they're not in a super prosperous area. They're out in the country.
Yeah. They are peasants in the middle of a civil war.
Yeah. He gets pretty good, and then my Ling can have flashbacks too. And so we come back to the Longzi boardroom. We're going to have to find out what this Tong's new name is.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, do you think it has to change? Does it have to change names?
Well, because they always said it like it's Longzi territory, but like that was the guy's name. And so maybe they'll...
Oh, yeah.
So maybe they'll keep saying it's Longzi territory, but I have a feeling like the Tong is going to have to get a new name. We'll see. Anyway, so they start the meeting and saying... I think...
Wait a minute. Wait. You are the food and fashion lady. And you are not going to talk about My Ling's fucking outfit in this scene?
Okay.
We're not going to paint a picture? This is the coolest outfit that has been in the show yet. She is wearing what is like...
It looks like armor.
It's like deep emerald that looks black almost with like gold brocade on it, right? And then so I thought she had a hat on. But what she had was a hairpin called a booyao in her hair. And booyao basically means like dangly bullshit. And it's because it had little things dangling off the side.
Sure, yeah.
And that is a sign of nobility that dates all the way back to the Han Dynasty. And those things were handed down from generation to generation. So she was probably wearing this like incredible antique on her head.
But yeah, I'm sure she had imported now that, or maybe Longzi had brought over... Because, clearly he had a bunch of antiques that were like giving him all this status. But yeah, she strolls in. And if you look at sort of the old paintings of guys in like imperial armor and their dress, especially the ones that are painted yellow, where they've got the like pointy shoulders, that's her outfit had those like pointy armor shoulders on it.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, she might as well have had the Imperial Death March playing when she walked in. Woo! She looked like she was going to kill people with the power of her mind.
Oh, yeah. She sits down and Li Yong is like, hey, she's here. You guys said blood oaths to Long Z, and we've all agreed that she gets your blood oaths, so let's business. And Zhang is butt hurt.
He is. And she doesn't look real. She looks pretty nonplussed, but you know he's going to die.
Oh.
You know he's going to die.
Oh, yeah. He doesn't know it yet.
I thought she was going to pull the hairpin out of her hair and stab him in the fucking face with it. But no, it was way cooler than that.
Yes, it was. And she was doing the classic thing where Leong's going to jump up and protect her. She's like, no. And she just does the soft little girl face. And I was like, Zhang, you're in trouble. And he still doesn't understand it yet. He's going to bring up her sexual status and decide whether or not she's valid to participate in society in this boardroom. And she just walks over to him. And the look in her eyes, that's when Zhang knows he's going to die.
Yeah, she says something like, I know some of you have some reservations about having a female at the head of the family, whether or not I'm capable of acting with the right amount of vengeance, whether people will fear me.
Yeah. Can I be as hard as I need to be?
And then all of a sudden, out of her sleeves pops Chow's Derringer, and she blows that man's face off. Using a weapon that she shit-talked and dragged and made Chow feel like an asshole about.
I was laughing. I'm like, it's Chekhov's Derringer. I realize it's Chow's Derringer. But yeah, I'm like, oh, I guess she bought it.
Chekhov's Derringer? Did Chekhov have a Derringer?
Oh, like Chekhov's gun. You know, if you have a gun in the first act, you have to use it by the third act.
Oh, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, it's a playwriting convention.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Chekhov from Star Trek, because I know
No.
I was like, Chekhov never had a gun?
No, Chekhov, the Russian playwright. It's sort of a thing like if a weapon and then later on, just in storytelling, if an object appears, you're like, okay, how is that going to come back? When is that going to come back? And so the Derringer showed up, and I'm like, I wonder if that's going to come back. And blam! It sure did.
There it is.
And just the look in Zhang's eyes when he realizes he's going to die.
Yeah. He's like, oh, that was a miscalculation, and I'm dead.
Yep. And that's that. And everybody's like, I guess she is hard enough. Okay. Yes, ma'am. What would you like?
Yeah. The dragon lady can have whatever she likes. Thank you.
So we get back to Toy's layer of healing, and Penny shows up, and the way Toy does this, like, blink, blink, blink. Oh, hi, Karen.
Yeah. This white devil stealing away our good yellow men. Or whatever, like it.
There you go.
Oh, jeez. She is having none of Penny showing. Like, just, what is this fucking white woman doing? God damn it. And, like, just so mad.
Oh, just that way she just blinks her eyes. I was like, that was eloquent. I'm glad Toy does so much with her eyelashes.
Before we got to the end, so here I'm thinking, oh, she's into Assam. And so I thought Toy is into Assam, and, like, she's trying to do that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And that's what this, like, salty, like, why are you trying to steal my man thing happened. But no, that's not what happened.
No, it's not. No, I think Toy is a person who wouldn't ever want a romantic entanglement. She's looking for allies, but she's also looking for friends. And so, you know, Wang Chao is her bud because they're both operators. And I think she kind of sees Assam as kind of a little bit of this lost soul, a little bit like Lai is, that, like, I can make something of you.
Okay. So she's like a driftwood artist. All right.
Yeah.
A human driftwood artist. All right.
Yeah.
Only all of her art is for murder. It's murder art.
Hey, we all have our areas of expertise.
There you go. She really is kind of turning out to be Dexter, the Dexter of this show.
Ooh.
Yeah, she's kind of an ethical serial killer.
But yeah, she is pragmatic as hell. So we were talking about my Ling's outfit, Penny's outfit here. Her showing up in the pearls there, that was kind of what I was thinking, like, this is Penny's sign of captivity. But just as a contrast to some of the other things she's been wearing recently, like the bathrobe where she decides to come on to her husband, and then the outfit she's wearing up in her lady cave, This one you can see, like, it's got all of these seams and buttons, and you can see how
it's formal as hell.
Yeah, and the clothes are like standing out from her body. Like, you're like, okay, she is cinched in there and probably can't breathe so well.
Oh, interesting. But that is basically 19th century female armor. Like, she's armored up. She's
right.
Yeah. Yeah, so
she's dressed to do battle.
Yeah, she doesn't give a shit about the ugly looks she's getting from Toy because she's got her armor on. She's ready for that.
Yeah, she's like, yeah, I'm here to do a thing. So she comes in and like makes her claim and stands her ground and does whatever. Meanwhile, Sam and Buckley, and I mean, Sam's trying to throw his dick around and Buckley's having none of it.
Buckley is just so disgusted with him at this point. I think he's been disgusted with him.
Oh, yeah.
For the longest. I mean, he's disgusted with everyone, it seems like, but he's especially disgusted with the mayor. And so he just, he talks to him like he's a child. Mm-hmm. Like he's a stupid, unliked child.
Oh, yeah. And the line where he says, you can't be perceived as having granted favors. I'm like, bullshit, Buckley. What you really mean...
That's literally all that politics was at that point, was nothing but favor granting and graft.
It's like you can't get caught granting favors because at this point, all the industrialists are just looking for, like, flexible politicians somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, because they're just going to call in a bunch of Pinkertons to murder anybody who goes against them anyway. It's not like there was any checks and balances at this point.
So that was, for me, that was another, like, funny moment that, like, wasn't played as humor, but sort of in the context of it, you're like, you are such a bullshitter, Buckley. But, yeah, Sam Blake...
Buckley's face when Sam grabs his drink and drinks it was amazing. Woo, if looks could kill, everybody in that room would have died.
Sam Blake, I don't like feeling like an idiot. And Buckley's like, I understand. He's like, that's what all idiots say. He's just like, yes, okay, I will humor you until I can get somebody more competent in the mayor's seat to control.
So much disgust in his voice when he was like, yes, I apologize.
Oh.
But like, I have given apologies like that before, and... That's when you are forced to apologize and you would rather die almost than get the words out of your mouth.
Oh, yeah, you could strip paint with the acid in his voice right there.
Oh, that's a great way to put it. Wow, that was beautiful.
So we're back to Atoy's room and they're doing the nursing and Lai pulls out the things that were in his nose to like help it heal back into nose shape is what I was guessing was going on.
Yeah, I guess it was to hold his sinuses open so that they didn't close up completely.
Yeah.
Because his nose was flat.
Yeah. And so I was thinking about what I said earlier that, you know, episode 5, the blood in the shit, that means something different to women. They got to deal with the blood in the shit after the battle. And that's literally what they're doing.
Yep. Yeah. They're, seeing to him, they put his shoulder back into place, which looks like it probably wasn't fun.
No.
As it turns out, 2 years ago, I dislocated both my shoulder and my elbow doing skull crushers, and I had been training with it. I had been training like that for 2 years, and my shoulder just popped back into place the other day while my wife was cranking on it, and I made a noise similar to Assam. I didn't even know it was fucking dislocated, so that was really unpleasant. It was, yeah.
Oh, yeah, and now all your tendons are going to have to get reoriented. You're going to be sore there for a while.
It's been fun. Yeah, and then Atoy tells him that he lost the fight not because he wasn't good enough, but because he lacked purpose.
Yes.
And that his new purpose is to fight back against the white people. And she has an amazing line there because he's like, what is the point of that? This is pointless. And do you want to give it? You give it.
Oh, and she says the whole thing isn't to win, it's to inspire the next people who come after us to fight.
Exactly. And when he says, but we don't belong here, she says, no one belongs here. This is a country of immigrants. And I was like, that's an amazing line. Like, that should be on the fucking Constitution. Jesus.
Yeah, this is a country of foreigners. Like, none of us belong here.
Yeah.
So why not us?
Yeah.
Yeah, that And I'm like, yep, now she's my favorite character.
Yeah.
She's my favorite character. Because she's pragmatic, not just in like these negative situations where she goes, you're very annoying to me and have the possibility of ruining my life, so I'm going to kill you now. She's also very pragmatic about constructive things.
Yeah, literally everything. She is just the most emotionless looking person. I don't know if that is enhanced by the opium or not, but like I've never met a person that cold, but that woman would terrify the shit out of me.
Well, I just think about all of the pragmatic decisions she's had to make in her life to get where she is, considering that she came off a boat purchase just like Lai and all those other girls. Like, what bargains did you have to make with yourself? What promises did you have to make with yourself? And how many people did you have to poison and kill? I mean, she has gone through it.
How many disgusting minors did they have to have sex with before they finally... just... What the fuck? Like, these people just come, they haven't showered in 6 months. I mean, I know a lot in San Francisco, especially, they had bathhouses specifically for that, and a lot of the whorehouses, they would make men clean up before that, but that wasn't the nice ones.
Right.
I'm sure there were plenty of down on their luck opium addicts and drunks who were fucking these guys who had been out mining gold without washing themselves, and it would have been perpetually drunk on single distilled whiskey for like years. Imagine what those beards must have smelled like. Oh my God. Bleh. You could probably smell their beard from a half a block away at least. Just being in a room with somebody with a beard like that would make you throw up. And they had to fuck those people.
Yeah. And so I think she has a very interesting mind. It must be divided into 1,000 puzzle boxes to sort of hold all of these memories away from the current moment.
Okay, that's one way to put that she's a shattered psychopath.
Also, yes, you know.
That was nice. That was a nice spin to put on it.
So let's see. So I was thinking like Young Jun has to be like handing money to Atoy as well, because like this is his bud, and so even though he can't really come see him, and he does in a little bit, but I'm like, I bet he's handing Atoy money to help out with this.
Yeah, and well, when he does go and see him, the intimation is, my dad doesn't want you in the gang, but as soon as that motherfucker's dead, you're in the gang. Mm-hmm. Like, just chill out and lay back. That's at least how I took it.
Oh yeah,
and that he was really upset about having to say that, but like, I can't talk to you until my dad's dead, so hopefully that motherfucker dies right now.
But also because Young Jun is a dramatic motherfucker. He's like, yeah, and if you go work for any other tongue, I'm going to have to kill you, man.
Yeah. You know I'm going to have to kill you, right? Or I'm at least going to try and die real badly, unless my girlfriend saves me. I really miss her. Do you miss her? I miss her. Think about it a lot.
Yeah. I want to run away. And go back there.
Yeah, and meanwhile, he could have... This guy's this big swinging dick stabbing everybody. Stand up to your goddamn dad. Like, this man's the best fighter in our tongue. It might help if he's still on our team.
But Young Jun is the kid, and, you know, he's got daddy issues. And I just think about, like, he doesn't have a family. His mom was a whore concubine or something, so he doesn't have, like, a mom or aunties in his corner. He's trying to do this all on his own.
Yeah, and it seems, at least from my investigation of different fighters around the world, that having an abusive, domineering father did not cause any of these great fighter badasses to turn around and kick their dad's head in at some point, which I've never understood. Like, why not just take that iron bar out of their hand and beat their head in with it rather than taking the beating? But I guess Young Jun is just living up to the to the examples set by every other abused child in history.
I mean, yeah, the obligations of family weigh heavy. And then when you also sort of have all of this, like, eternal life mythology larded on top of it.
Oh, yeah, and the filial piety, I guess, is really, really difficult to abandon your father with the concept of filial piety weighing over your head so heavily. I mean, that's a lot of their religion.
Yeah, and you have no mother's family. I mean, I realize, like, the mother's family usually counted for a lot less, but, this is all his family. And then there's also the problem that if he does take his dad out, how much of the Hop Way will follow Young Jun, and how much of it will start an internal war. Like, there's layers. There's a lot going on here.
Oh, interesting. I figured, I just right out of the gate assumed that they would just follow him because he's the one who's leading him into battle all the time.
That's true, but remember, like, the conflict that he's got with, like, the business dudes?
Oh, yeah.
Because, like, if he pisses them off, I think they control the money.
Yep. Yeah. The Chinese Association. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, there's just also the stuff, like, bred into him since he was a little kid that, the obligations of family and I mean, what would the Chinese Association do to a guy who killed his dad, considering the importance of filial piety? I don't know if they would necessarily give him their sanction.
I have no idea. I don't even understand the concept of filial piety. So I have no extended family and don't talk to my own family. So I don't know. I don't know how you can not cut somebody off. It's pretty easy to do.
Yeah.
You just stop answering the phone.
But I mean, you look at China, and if you did not have a family to back you, you were nothing.
Yeah, but he's in America now. And they even make that point. Like, this is a new world. This isn't the old world. They say those very words at some point in this episode.
That's true, but he would still be cut off within the Chinese community.
Yeah, that's true. But he even says he's not, like, in the U.S., he's Chinese, not American, but still, like, he doesn't have any of that connection because he hasn't been to China. So I think
that's true.
He feels like he's not even Chinese.
Right, yeah. I mean, we can definitely agree. That's one conflicted dude.
Yeah. He's a great actor, too. I
oh,
love
yeah.
that actor.
No, I'm having a lot of fun. And the way he was able to take that, like, angry sadness about having to give up on Assam, I was just like, that was so well done.
Oh, you want to talk about your lighting, your comic book lighting on his face in that scene with his lip trembling and he was really feeling it.
Yeah.
And he looked 45 in that too. I mean, the way the light, I mean, it really, like, the years showed that didn't exist on his face.
Yeah. He's had to recover from a lot of fights, and I think that takes it out of you.
Yeah, I suppose so.
But then we come to the end of the episode, and they are gonna fishhook us right into the next one.
I gotta say, before we get to the very last scene, I have to say that the fact that the cops were drinking in every scene, like, they're just taking it out of flasks, taking a bottle to the face. At all times in this show, they are drunk. And, like, when Bill's talking to the cops in the corner, and he's like, finishing up our beat, and the guy's just chugging out of his flask, and I'm like, there you go, buddy. And he's like, well, you guys stay sharp.
You gotta stay hydrated.
You guys stay sharp, he says as he walks off.
Hydrated, feeling no pain, something like that. Yeah. But yeah, so Ahara walks off, and a mystery guy in a shiny blue coat comes up to face down Richard Lee. And at first I thought, like, the bounty hunter had come back for a second swing, but I'm like, nope, that's not that. But that did flash across my brain for a second.
But no, it's the Fong Hai.
Was it the Fong Hai?
Yeah, because they had tattoos on the sides of their head.
Okay.
Yeah, so the first two that he beat the shit out of, Lee trashes the first two, and they're trying to get him, and he's too quick for him, and then all of a sudden this big bad comes up, all these tattoos down the side of his head, and he trashes Lee. He even, at one point, Lee's trying to take him out with his billy club, and he blocks the billy club, and billy club breaks over his forearm.
Yes.
So he's been doing some Iron Shirt training too, it looks like.
Yeah, because I was watching that, and I was so taken up with this. I'm like, is that Fong Hai? I'm like, who? What? Why? But I was also watching the way he was beating him. I'm like, no, this is a message. He wants him to survive.
Yes, because then he drops a little marker on his chest before he leaves.
Yes, and it was heaven. Ken.
Oh, okay. I was rushing to get up here so that I could record this because, like I said, I took 2.5 hours to take notes on this thing, so I don't even think I caught that. But all right, so it was Tien.
Yeah, like what little Chinese I can recognize. Like I can count to 5, but I was like, oh wait, that's the heaven one.
Yes, Tien always pops into my head because I always remember Tien Shan, the heavenly mountain.
Yeah. So, we made it to the end.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Episode 9 in the books.
Yes. And next week, I feel like we're probably going to see Assam.
It's the season finale.
Yeah. Maybe he'll start to figure out his new purpose.
And I don't know if you know this, but while we've been recording this, season 3 has been happening.
Yes.
So I have not watched it yet. I'm going to go into it fresh. Yes,
Oh, wow.
I'm going into it fresh. So this is killing me, but I'm going to go into it fresh.
You are a man of discipline. But yeah, so next episode is if you are going to bow, bow low. And that's why I feel like Assam is heading into his new destiny.
Yes, and that is a really interesting thing with etiquette in Asia is the bowing thing, because the depth with which you bow it's determined by so many different social factors. Unless you're a part of that society, you would have no fucking idea how to bow. So, because you're not supposed to bow too much, because that gives too much deference to people who are below you in the social order. But you're also not supposed to give a discourteous nod unless you're like my Ling, in which case you can just nod at somebody and be like, you can go fuck yourself. If you want to die, we can get it. But with everybody else, there's a very that's why they're always watching each other to see how deep they bow. It's because they want to bow the same depth, not too much, not too little. It's weird. There's a lot going on there. I love the bow. It's way better than all the people. Every white actor now is doing the prayer hands when they're like, thank you, thank you, thank you. That thing, that drives me nuts. But I would prefer to bow, honestly, but I don't know the etiquette rules in order to do it correctly. So, plus I think they changed from country to country. There's many countries where there's no bowing, so God only knows.
Yeah, I always saw the prayer hands as no, that's
the kung fu salute with the fist against the palm.
And there's a couple of variations that we get to see of that, is whether the hand is straight up or the hand like curls over the palm. I mean, yeah, there's a whole bunch going on there too. I'm sure
that I wonder how many books there are on bowing. If it's like the handkerchief dropping books of the 19th century. Like
I wouldn't be surprised.
How many of those books have you read?
Not so many. I've read a couple of the different ones on the language of flowers, because that's vaguely connected to, herbs and food and everything.
Wasn't there something? It had to do with handkerchief dropping.
It was more the fan language.
Oh, fan language. Yeah. They were books that only women read and no man read. And then, but yeah.
And there weren't that many books on it, because a lot of it was just sort of like slang, and so it got passed down from mother to daughter and girlfriend to girlfriend, and what you were doing last season. And
nobody ever thought to inform men about the meaning of these things.
Wait, are you supposed to know this stuff? I mean, just because we're trying to send messages to you, sometimes we forget that we might need to tell you what the hell we're trying to do. That would have been nice.
Yeah, just a little interpretation dictionary, probably, liberally distributed in churches and bars. Probably would have gone a long way to...
Oh my goodness. Well, as for sending messages, where can people find your other messages out on the internet?
Mostly on the Instagram. I am at Plague of Strength on Instagram, and my website is plagueofstrength.com.
And you've been doing some really fun videos recently about, what's going on in the lifting world. Just some of those little short clips. I'm like, what? What is that? Okay, clearly there's a whole new world here I don't know anything about.
The one that I posted this morning, I don't know if you saw, but it's a Persian warm-up for wrestlers, and it's like the Persian version of a burpee. But so they drop there's like a pole in the ground, do a push-up, they jump back up, and then they're spinning and kicking and like whirling dervish shit that goes on, and then they drop back down, do another burpee. Then there's more spinning and jumping and kicking, and then drop down and do another burpee. It's cool as shit, and that's like ultra ancient too. The Persian and Indian wrestling and their training goes back at least 2,000 years. And
the Persian wrestlers were the mysterious secrets of the East to the Romans.
Yep. And and a lot of people don't know this, but the Greeks, when they conquered Persia and India, instituted the same policy of having local city gyms that they had in Greece. And so the agora in Greece became the akata in Persia, and it was something similar in India. And so they still have all these little local gyms with sand floors, and they do all this traditional training with traditional drumming and all kinds of stuff. I can't believe no enterprising person in the United States has turned this into a group fitness class for bored housewives, because they would make a killing. It blows Zumba out of the water.
And all that sand is really good for exfoliation. retaliation. So yeah, I see you've got a point there.
I hadn't even thought of that. I was thinking they were just going to do it in a regular room, but taking the sand into it. Yes, you gotta bring in all the aspects.
Absolutely. So you can find me at The History of American Food. That is my food podcast. I am looking at a bunch of aspects of war food between 1776 and the end of the War of 1812 and the whole start of the 19th century, which is, of course, how I ended up here with you, because I discovered the 19th century is full mayhem, and that's what I'm beginning to look at.
It's so much fun. So you're studying just how many mealworms people ate back in the day during war?
That and how you got mealworms from person to person. I mean,
oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
Transports
hardtack
about
and
it.
mealworms. And
Yeah.
Mealworms and hardtack.
But also, like, the charcoal controversy, there's just a lot of cool stuff. The rise of sugar culture, how does canning affect war? Food and war are so connected.
Everybody, you guys need to listen to this, because when you're looking at all these old school lifters and fighters and stuff, and you're thinking that they ate really well, think again. Think again. My God, this is why I went to Greta, and I was like, you've got to help me educate these people, because they just don't know.
I mean,
and the dysentery that went on in every war. So every war that happened up until now was just people going to die with their pants filled with shit. At all times.
Yes.
They had dysentery the whole time. If you coughed, you shit your pants up until about 1950.
Oh, yeah. In all of the wars until the 20th century, and really until World War II, you didn't die on the battlefield. You died either in the trench, from your wound, from the terrible rations they gave you, from the formaldehyde poisoning you got from the beef. I mean, the safest place to be was in front of somebody's gun that didn't fire very well.
Yeah, just shoot me so I can die already. My God, get it over with.
All right. Well, we will be back next week with the season finale. And
oh, I have one last question for you before
Sure.
we wrap up. Do you think that the North Koreans, when they come across the border and we see that their bodies are just filled with parasites, is that what people in the 19th century were like? Like they were mostly just like a host for worms? Because that's what when you read about these North Koreans who defect, their stomachs are filled with worms. Like they are detoxing these people off parasites for months.
I think the North Koreans are more like 19th century people at the end of a disaster, a famine or a war or something, because these people are living in much more confined circumstances. And, you could go from village to village, and that village might actually be doing pretty well, and this village might be in trouble, and then it would shift around every couple of years. But it feels like in North Korea, everything sucks for everyone everywhere.
Yeah, unless you're Kim
Well,
Jong-il or
yeah,
whatever.
And have 97,000 medals on your jacket and have to have the medal extender.
I don't know how you could be a fat person in charge of a bunch of starving people. That is psychotic. It's so awful.
It makes Ah Toy look like a positively reasonable person.
Yeah. Less merciless and more merciful, I guess.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, next week we get to see what Ah Toy was talking about, what Ah Sam is up to, and yeah.
And that'll be the wrapping up of season 1 of Warrior and then we'll move on to something else.
Yeah, we'll talk about that next week. But yeah.
All right.
All right.
Sweet.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
We're on Instagram at pcgpodcast, and you can always reach out to us by email at pcgpodcasters@gmail.com. And you can find more dope beats like this one from royalraven.com.